Welcome into the Fantasy Football Forge. Wrong holiday. Welcome. My name is Steve, and that was not planned. I literally that was an accident. But it is time to go over my show notes before we get into the Week 11 rankings. And after we do that, we will go over my DFS plays of the week. And we will also recap how I did last week with my loves and my DFS plays before we get to the rankings in that order that I explained. So, I have a couple of notes here. I've ranked the Los Angeles Rams wide receivers kind of oddly. I'll be playing it by ear throughout the week based on any information that I get in terms of the health of Cooper Kupp. That's going to affect a lot of things. But right now, I do have Puka ranked essentially as if there is no Kupp. I'm not sure how much he's going to fall, though. I don't think it's going to be incredibly drastic if Kupp is playing. However, if the news on Cooper Kupp is extremely good, then it probably will change the rankings a fair bit, and I am currently ranking Cooper Kupp and Tutu Atwell as if Cooper Kupp is playing. I'm in a wait and see this week as far as the Pittsburgh wide receivers are concerned, now that they do not have Matt Canada potentially holding that offense back anymore. It's a promising situation going forward, but I'm not about to overrank them this week, so I pretty much just have them ranked like I would have even if Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator again this week. Also, you can find my complete rankings up on the website, www.theffforge.com. They're always up there, and they do get updated throughout the week, but mostly they get updated for my Saturday show where I will give you a rankings update, and you can always find them, my most up-to-date rankings, that is, up here live with me on YouTube. When I'm here for start sit questions, which I am every Sunday 3 hours prior to kickoff, as well as this week I will be 3 hours prior to the first Thanksgiving game and 2 or 1.5 hours prior to the Black Friday game. So I'll be available plenty for any questions that you have throughout the week. And I'm going to forget to say this at the end, so I do wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a good time. I hope you're able to enjoy your family time, your friend time, your time off of work, however it is that you decide to celebrate your Thanksgiving, or, with me. That's good. We've got the notes covered. Now for the Week 11 recap. At the bottom of the barrel / for a big tournament long shot DFS type of play here for my DFS recommendations, I give you Rashad Bateman at 3,100. Thought it was a good matchup. It was. We saw actually a couple of receivers, get some touchdowns off of that. And George Pickens, I also, for similar reasons, like the matchup at 4,900. They were neither one of them had a good week. I also said that I would be taking a shot on paying up for essentially Amon-Ra St. Brown and Brandon Ayuk, and they both worked out. Amon-Ra St. Brown was the wide receiver 7, Ayuk wide receiver 5. So that worked out well. Contrarian play, I gave you Nico Collins at 6,700 because I figured everybody would be all over Tank Dell, and Tank Dell outscored him. Nico Collins had a wide receiver 24 week, so he might have gotten you your money back. Probably not even there. And then Jahan Dotson at 5,100 was another one that I said he was the wide receiver 29, but he did get a touchdown on the week, so there was that. For my love'ems, I give you Chris Godwin, Marquise Brown, and Rashee Rice. It was a rough week for me because a lot of people asked me questions about Marquise Brown and, what's his name? Garrett Wilson. I'm not re-recording that. I just noticed that I forgot to zoom this up over on the side. Oh, well. But at least it helped me to find Garrett Wilson's name. So a lot of people asked me about those guys specifically, told a lot of people to play, and they did not do well. Marquise Brown was the wide receiver 76 on the week. For my love'ems here, Chris Godwin was wide receiver 39, Rashee Rice wide receiver 46. None of that worked out. And for my fade'ems, I give you Mike Evans, Devonta Smith, and Deontay Johnson. And that sounds worse than it actually is. So Mike Evans have, for some time now, ranked as essentially a wide receiver 1 each and every week. And I just thought that you're still going to play him, but he might be limited. He was the wide receiver 21 on the week. So that was actually a success in my book. Same with Devonta Smith here in terms of how I had him ranked. I had him ranked as my 20th wide receiver, and he finished as the wide receiver 20 on the week. So I got the ranking right. He did have a decent week. In my opinions, I would have not had a fade on him if you asked me to do fades and loves at the end of the week or leading into Sunday. So I did switch my opinion a little bit on that. And Deontay Johnson also at wide receiver 74. That worked as a fade. As far as my rankings go this week, I have 4 very chonky tiers overall, which typically means that my confidence level is not very high this week. I don't love a lot of them. And up on the screen, you can see my first tier of rankings, my top 14 wide receivers all making this tier. Guys who you should just put in your lineup, start them, and don't question it. CeeDee Lamb I have as the wide receiver 1 this week, followed by A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. I might put Diggs over A.J. Brown even. Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver 5, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Puka Nacua, Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans, Tank Dell, DJ Moore, and Adam Thielen. And I don't often do this, especially with studs, but I think this situation's a little bit different. And as I've already mentioned, I don't really love a whole lot of wide receivers this week anyways, but Justin Jefferson, if he is playing, is a guy that I do think that you should start. Maybe not fully with confidence, but I do believe that you should start. He can work from the slot. This is, once again, if he plays. Before I get into that, the team, it is known he is only going to be coming back and playing once he is at 100% health. So his health will not be a concern once he hits the field again. And, once again, he can work from the slot quite well, which I think works a lot better than Jordan Addison and his skill set in terms of what Dobbs' skill set is. Dobbs much better at short and intermediate throws, and he is deep balls. And that'll bring us right into my second tier, starting off with Nico Collins at wide receiver 15. Am I ranking him too highly? Maybe, but I still like him quite a bit. At wide receiver 16, I have DK Metcalf going up against San Francisco. Am I ranking him too highly? I don't think there's a chance that I'm ranking him too highly. I think he very much deserves this ranking. He is my EV wide receiver 14 on the season. That is much like average fantasy points per week scored, except it takes consistency into account. So he has been consistently a near wide receiver 1 on the season, and he also had a very long stretch as of recent where he was not very healthy, and that was impacting his play. He got through that patch. We saw it last week, and I said I thought coming into last week that he was at better health and that would help him to have a good game, and he did. And so I had him ranked quite well last week as well, and it all proved to be true, and San Francisco is a good matchup. So I am high on DK Metcalf this week yet again. Chris Olave I have at wide receiver 17, Devonta Smith, wide receiver 18, and Jamar Chase in at wide receiver 19. Am I concerned about Jamar Chase? Sure, but I really can't rank him lower. I have Christian Kirk at wide receiver 20, Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 21, Cooper Kupp wide receiver 22, Davante Adams wide receiver 23. As far as Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp being ahead of Davante Adams, at the end of the day, I would just rather take a shot on them than Adams this week, who is facing the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, the news on Cooper Kupp and his health, and if he even starts this week, would change where he is ranked, if he is ranked at all. But the concern about Davante Adams playing against Kansas City is very real. So here are 4 big named wide receivers that they have played outside of week 1, because they played Amon-Ra St. Brown week 1. He did get a touchdown. He had like 77 yards, 6 receptions. He had a good game. Not a top-notch Amon-Ra St. Brown game, limited in the receptions department. The yards department was fine, and he got a touchdown. But outside of that, we had Justin Jefferson versus Kansas City. 3 receptions, 28 yards. Keenan Allen. And if that's the game that Justin Jefferson got injured, please leave a comment letting other viewers know that. I forgot to double check and make sure that's not the game that he got injured. Keenan Allen versus Kansas City. 4 receptions, 55 yards. Tyreek Hill versus Kansas City. 8 receptions, 62 yards, which, as we know for Tyreek Hill, that's really not a great day. A.J. Brown, as we know for him, it was a terrible day on Monday. 1 reception, 8 yards. Davante Adams, I don't see where the ceiling is. Those are 4 star players who have much better quarterbacks than AOC for Davante Adams throwing to him. And none of them got touchdowns. All of them were limited in pretty much every department. Tyreek Hill maybe had an okay day. And that is why I'm nervous on Devontae Adams. Let's move on to this next tier here. My third tier, starting at wide receiver 24 with Jalen Waddle, who is in the single worst wide receiver matchup of the week going up against the New York Jets. That's why I have Tyreek Hill ranked 4th this week. And at wide receiver 25, we have Calvin Ridley. And just looking back a week here, unfortunately, I could not rank him higher, and I really couldn't suggest him in most, if not all, start-sit questions that I received that included Calvin Ridley. So I do apologize for anybody who asked about him and had them on their bench at the end of the day. But I did bring up the fact, at least in live and maybe in the video, that his one big game so far in the season prior to this past week was when there was a healthy Zay Jones. And I don't think that that's a complete joke. It's a complete fluke. It's kind of said as a joke, but at the same time, I really think that Zay Jones is important to how this offense operates, and it changes how they use Calvin Ridley. So I am expecting a better Calvin Ridley going forward if Zay Jones can stay healthy, but I'm also expecting more inconsistency for Christian Kirk. Calvin Ridley's already not been consistent, but I don't know that he'll be a week in and week out reliable guy. But going up against Houston this week, like the matchup, so that's all good. Tyler Lockett, I have at wide receiver 26 going up against San Francisco. Once again, actually a solid wide receiver matchup, and with a healthy DK, that might be able to take a little bit of attention away from Tyler Lockett and help to open things up for him in some weeks. Maybe it'll be this week against San Fran. Once again, decent matchup. Garrett Wilson is going to be the last wide receiver I will talk about in this tier at wide receiver 27 going up against Miami. So there's part of the hope for him this week, but I also have hope for him because of the fact that he plays out of the slot, because of the fact that he does such a good job of getting open, that he should remain the target leader in this offense. He should still have a fine floor, especially in this matchup. So, it's not like I love Garrett Wilson, and it sucks. Last week was like the first week that I finally bought into Garrett Wilson and felt comfortable recommending him to people, and then it was such a dud, negative fantasy points. But, I think he'll have a better week this week than last week. To finish this tier up, I have DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver 28, followed by Terry McLaurin and Chris Godwin, which is going to bring us to the last tier, which is a very chonky tier, and so we will say very little about all of them. But I am going to go 47 wide receivers deep. Once again, I have about 100 wide receivers ranked. You can find them all up on the website at www.theff4ge.com. So this tier starts off with Courtland Sutton at wide receiver 31, and it's a terrible wide receiver matchup for him going up against the Cleveland Browns. His floor absolutely sucks. I don't really trust him at all this week, but then again, who do I trust this week? And somehow he has come away with good fantasy points most weeks this season. Still, he is a fatum for me. And then Deontay Johnson I have at wide receiver 32, followed by Josh Downs and Zay Flowers at wide receivers 33 and 34, respectively, going up against Tampa Bay and the Los Angeles Chargers, respectively. And what I have to say about these two is that the ECR is either too high on Zay Flowers currently, is like wide receiver 22 or something like that, or too low on Josh Downs. They both project nearly identically in every sense as high-end flexes. They actually project lower than where I have them ranked. That said, in a week where I just pretty much don't trust most of the wide receivers, these two are both a complete breath of fresh air. I trust the floors inherently for both of them completely. I don't think inherently was the word I wanted to say there, but I really, truly just feel comfortable with these two, and I'll try to push them as far up into my rankings as I can throughout the week. But based on what they've done all season long, we have to be a little bit hesitant with that. Or, we can't push them up too high, I suppose. Wide receiver 35, I have Marquise Brown, and it's just been disappointing as of late. Another guy who recommended for a lot of people. And, I'm sorry for that. I had high expectations. He did not come through with them. Drake London I have at wide receiver 36, and I have Jordan Addison at wide receiver 37. And you can throw them out there and hope for the best is essentially all I have to say on those two. Jordan Addison, good matchup. Hasn't been good with Josh Dobbs. Does Justin Jefferson coming back change that? I don't know. You got Drake London against New Orleans, not the best matchup or whatever, but this is roughly where he's been producing season long. So I have him ranked properly. Hopefully it comes through for you. Demario Douglas, wide receiver 38. I just talked about loving the floor for Josh Downs, Say Flowers. Feel pretty much the same about Demario Douglas, not to quite the same extent as either of those two. And it's a really good matchup here against the New York Giants. I wish I could like him more. However, as you can see based on the projections as well, like the ceiling just does not exist for him right now in that offense with whoever's at quarterback is not very pretty. So I do like him as a floor play, but don't expect. It's tough to expect a touchdown from him. Wide receiver 39, I have Jaden Reed ranked, and he has emerged as the best fantasy wide receiver out of this Green Bay Packers wide receiver core. Who would have thunk? And, Detroit's a plus matchup, so like him a fair bit this week. Then at wide receiver 40, I have Amari Cooper going up against Denver. At least he's been getting targeted from DTR, like 8 targets. I don't know, he's averaging like 8.5 targets per game from DTR, but I still don't trust it a whole lot, and Denver's defense has been getting better as of late still, so that doesn't help my hopes for Amari Cooper. Wide receiver 41, we've got Gabe Davis, followed by Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver 42, George Pickens at 43, Romeo Doubs at 44, Rashee Rice at wide receiver 45. What do they all have in common? Essentially, we're hoping for a big play and or a touchdown, depending on exactly which one. But for all of them, you're just kind of hoping on a touchdown from them. I will say, in the case of Rashid Shaheed, if Jameis Winston is the quarterback there, he gets a little bit more enticing, probably would jump him up a little bit higher in the rankings. Wide receiver 46, we've got Brandon Cooks going up against the Washington Commanders. And, we like Dak for a reason this week, right? And it's just a shame that we can't trust Brandon Cooks more. But if you feel that you can trust him more, feel free to play him over plenty of people. It's tough to rank him too much higher, but I am optimistic about Brandon Cooks this week. And Odell Beckham Jr. at wide receiver 47. He's been on a bit of a heater as of late. The Los Angeles Chargers are a top-tier wide receiver matchup, but they're not the best. They're the second best. And unfortunately, he keeps getting banged up, and that's just a little bit concerning for me. But up until recently, it wasn't a very good season. But, just like Brandon Cooks, if you feel that you can trust him, don't let my rankings scare you away too much or other people's rankings if they're also low on him. Let's get on to the DFS buys and let you get on to the rest of your day as you prepare for Thanksgiving. I was looking for my phone so that way I could find the DFS because I forgot to do that. All right, so right off the bat here for the wide receivers for the Thursday slate, DK Metcalf stands out to me as a really good option to go with. If you're looking to go contrarian, or if you're looking to save a buck, Brandon Cooks at 4,500 feels pretty good to me. Let's look at the Sunday slate. Right off the bat here, if you've got money to spend at the wide receiver spot, go for Stephon Diggs at 8,800. I don't think he would be a contrarian play or anything. You look at A.J. Brown's a little bit more expensive than him, and it's a tougher matchup for A.J. Brown than it is for Stephon Diggs. Jamar Chase below him with the quarterback situation going on. So there's not a whole lot surrounding around him that's too promising, but I do think that Stephon Diggs could pay off at $8,800 if you've got the money around for that. And you know what? Screw it. It's full PPR for DK. So I'm going to say Josh Downs at $4,800 feels pretty darn good to me. Write him on down. Goodbye. Thank you very much for tuning on in. Peace out.